From the 9th to the 12th century, the Arab Empire was one of the strongest countries in the world at that time, thus becoming a major threat to Christian Europe. However, by the early 13th century, a powerful leader unprecedented before and after suddenly emerged among the nomadic peoples of North Asia, and he was Genghis Khan, the Mongolian man. He established a clear goal for his people: the Mongols will rule the world, making all the land belong to nomads. It is this dream that created the largest territorial empire in human history, the Mongol Empire. At its peak, the empire ruled over vast territories spanning Eurasia, from the Pacific coast of East Asia to the Carpathian Mountains in Eastern Europe and the Persian Gulf in the Middle East, covering an area of about 24 million square kilometers. Previously, when I talked about the Xiongnu and Turks, many friends were eager to hear about the Mongol Empire. So today's episode we will talk about this super nomadic empire that changed the entire world order. Although Europe was divided into many countries, there wasn't any insurmountable obstacle or boundary from one place to another, so Europe always presented a common destiny and development trajectory. However, Asia was completely different. In the middle of Asia lay an extensive mountain range stretching out in all directions like spider webs, forming natural geographic barriers that split Asia into extremely complex states. Active centers were too far apart, creating isolated worlds for themselves. It was precisely due to this unique geographical advantage that the various tribes on the Mongolian plateau hardly ever received interference from external civilizations. Whether it be the Han culture of central China or Islamic civilization, they didn't play a significant role here. At least these two cultures were more advanced than nomadic civilization back then. So in nicer terms, the tribes on the Mongolian plateau preserved the purest spirit and lifestyle of nomads, but to put it bluntly, they were actually barbaric, backward, and uncivilized. What kind of life did the Mongolians live at that time? We all know that the natural conditions on the Mongolian plateau are extremely harsh and not suitable for farming, so the Mongolians have never been agricultural residents. They didn't approve of transforming nature with tools like hoes, shovels, rice paddies, and water gates used by agrarian societies. Instead, they preferred to submit to their environment, living in tents and on horseback, considering livestock as their only wealth. So the Mongolians' entire life was almost entirely arranged around their animals. Animal hides were made into clothes, quilts, and yurts. Leather was turned into armor, shields, shoes, utensils, bones and tendons were used to make various tools including weapons. Animal dung served as excellent fuel. Livestock needed pasture, so the Mongolians moved with the water sources and grasslands. Both men and women of all ages lived on horseback. They would dry milk after boiling it in the sun to create a hard food that could be stored for long periods, which was basically what they ate during travel. Livestock also served as their currency. Items were exchanged based on their utility value with horses, camels, or calves. People's worth was measured by their usefulness too. If captives outnumbered livestock in war, the useless ones would be killed off. The rest of the people, including women and craftsmen, would be treated like a herd of animals and forced to march ahead. Family was the basic unit of social structure among Mongols. They lived together under one tent led by their father. Leaders counted their subjects not by head count but by tents. A large number of tents combined formed tribal groups. The title for tribal leaders was Khan, who had control over his tribe, but if he could provide sufficient material benefits to his followers, he could be ousted or killed. That is right. History has reached the late Middle Ages, yet the Mongolians still lived such a primitive life, maintaining this simple barbarism. In the mid-12th century, Mongolia was surrounded by powerful neighbors on all sides. These neighboring tribes or states fiercely guarded their borders against hungry steppe tribes. The Jin state encircled Mongolia, east and south Tibetan, Han mixed western Xia established in southwest, while Khitan to the west had set up a nomadic, led western Liao after retreating from central China. With its territory stretching from Altai Mountains to Sirdaria, bordering many Islamic states. Besides these fixed domain regimes, There were also some nomadic tribes roaming around like Mongols, such as Tatar, Kerit, Nayman, Merkit, etc. The strength of the Mongolian tribes not only could match any of their enemies, but they also fought each other frequently over a few acres of grassland or water source, even just because someone was idle and doing nothing, leading to bloody fights. Around 1162, Temujin was born in such a primitive small tribe. His father Yeshuge, although the leader of this tribe, died when he was 9 years old. The followers either fled or left to join another more powerful tribe, taking away Yeshuge's livestock with them. Thus, Temujin's mother Holun could only lead her children to live a poor life in the Kent Mountains area upstream of the Onon River, surviving by fishing and digging wild vegetables. So if we use today's language, Temujin's childhood was like an apocalyptic start. But who would have thought that this pitiful child later became the legendary Genghis Khan? At 17 years old, Temujin got married to Borte, daughter of a chief from the beautiful women, producing Hongjila tribe. This marriage agreement had been set by his father Yeshuge when he was alive. Although Temujin was just a poor boy at that time, her father still kept the promise. It is evident that this leader had good eyes for people. But unexpectedly, right after the two got married, Borjigit was kidnapped by the Merkit tribe. And the reason why the Merkit tribe kidnapped Bibede Iron Temujin's wife was also due to a seed planted when his father Yeshuge was alive, because Yeshuge had once taken the wife of the brother of the Merkit tribal chief. But as they say, misfortune may have its compensations. In order to rescue his new bride, Temujin rallied his father, sworn brother Wang Khan, and his own sworn brother Togrul Khan. Ultimately, not only did he successfully defeat the Merkits and reclaim Bute, but this also made him famous, attracting a group of followers. Even on their way back, Bete suddenly went into labor, giving birth to a son without Temujin having to lift a finger. It was quite a windfall indeed. With his own followers in tow, Temujin finally transformed from a poor boy into a tribal chief. Typically, small tribes like his would quickly be crushed by other larger ones. But, with the support of his wife's powerful family and her mother remarrying a shamanic leader, he was able to bypass the survival crisis phase after becoming a tribal chief and start expanding outward. Temujin was indeed formidable and fearless, always standing at the front lines himself. There was once an arrow shot through his neck, nearly causing him to bleed out, but thanks to his comrade splashing blood on his wound, he managed to survive. Over several years, Temujin's small tribe grew into a regional power. In 1189, he was enthroned as Khan by the eastern Mongol tribes. In 1196, the Jin dynasty had conflicts with the Tatar and other Altai and Baikal Lake tribes. Since the Jin nominally exercised suzerainty over Mongolia, Temujin sided with them, receiving substantial money and weapons from the Jin and helping Wang Khan defeat the Tatars. The Jin rewarded him with the title Jiratula, meaning a leader among leaders, further boosting his prestige. Tribes vied to ally themselves with him. However, as Temujin's fame soared, his former brothers Togrul and Wang Khan turned against him, gathering allies to attack him. In 1201, Jamukha united the remnants of the Merkit and some Mongol tribes into an 11-tribe alliance against Temujin, but was defeated by him. Then in 1203, Temujin crushed Wang Khan's coalition at the Kalka River battle. Not only did they fail to eliminate Temujin, their own tribes were completely annexed and fled westward to the Nayman tribe. But in 1204, Temujin invaded the Naymans, killing their chief, who was called Sunday God, and executing his former friend. In 1205, after eliminating the remnants of the Tatar and Taichu tribes, Temujin unified all of Mongolia, resulting in hundreds of thousands of deaths, but ending prolonged tribal warfare on the Mongolian plateau. In 1206, he summoned leaders from submitted tribes to a conference at the source of the Onon River, where his stepfather announced a divine decree that Temujin was chosen by heaven and should be Khan of all nomadic tribes. Henceforth, they would call him Genghis Khan, meaning oceanic ruler. The attendees naturally cheered in approval, while Genghis Khan granted them the title of Mongols to express gratitude for their submission. Thus the Mongol Empire was established with its next goal being world conquest. With Genghis Khan founding the Great Mongol Empire, nightmares began for Eurasia. The Tangut Western Shah became his first target. In 1207, he personally led an army into invasion using siege and water supply disruption tactics to force the Western Shah king to offer a princess as peace terms. But Genghis Khan refused and continued attacking until 1209 when he captured their capital Zhongxingfu, forcing them to submit and provide military aid before ceasing hostilities. In 1211, citing Jin support for Tatar remnants, Genghis Khan led 100,000 troops southward against his former employer, annihilating the main Jin army of 30,000 at Wuhuling and forcing their emperor to offer a princess as peace terms. But again he refused and continued advancing until 1215 when Zhongdu fell and the Jin moved its capital to Bianjing before halting operations. Subsequently Genghis Khan turned his sights on the Khitan Western Liao. At this time Naiman Prince, Sun Kuklug had fled there, whereupon the Western Liao ruler not only harbored him but married off a daughter to him. But unexpectedly, Kuklug betrayed his benefactor and usurped power, which was quite unforgivable. So Genghis Khan dispatched General Jebe with 2,000 elite troops to punish him, killing Kuklug and destroying the Western Liao. Now looking at the map everyone knew that the Khwarezmian Empire would be next. The Khwarezmian Empire was a powerful state established by Turkic ruler Ala ad-Din Muhammad on the ruins of the Seljuk Empire stretching from India to the Persian Gulf, northward to the Black Sea and Caspian Sea, westward to Arabia, eastward to the Aral Sea and western slopes of the Pamir Mountains. Not an easy opponent at all, but Genghis Khan was clearly determined. After Jebe destroyed the Western Liao he stationed troops along Khwarezm's border. Coincidentally, a Mongol trading caravan was killed in Khwarezmian city Otrar, and Muhammad refused compensation. So Genghis Khan used this as an excuse to lead 4 sons Juji, Chagatai, Furjadae, and Tului with 200,000 troops on a western campaign starting autumn of 1218. From 1219 to 1220, the Mongol army divided into 3 routes. At a lightning speed, they captured Bukhara and Samarkand and used the tactic of destroying cities to intimidate those who resisted, resulting in hundreds of thousands of civilian deaths. In 1221, the Mongols conquered Urgench, forcing Shah Muhammad to flee, eventually dying on a small island near the sea. That same year, his son Jalal al-Din also gave up resistance and fled to India, marking the end of the Khwarezmian Empire. However, Genghis Khan didn't immediately return eastward, but instead led troops north from 1222 to 1223, defeating the Kipchaks and Rus principalities. After annihilating the combined forces of the Principality of Galicia, Volhynia at the Battle of the Kalka River in 1223, he returned eastward in 1225. In 1227, when the Western Shah rebelled, Genghis Khan launched another campaign and completely destroyed it. It was also in this year that after a lifetime of warfare, Genghis Khan passed away. Before his death, Genghis Khan told his sons, "A single arrow can be easily broken, but a bundle of arrows is strong and hard to break." At this time, none of his 4 sons dared to have thoughts of competing with each other. After Genghis Khan's burial, the brothers separated and returned to their respective fiefs. His second son Chagatai went to Persia, while his third son Ojedi went to Han China. His eldest grandson Batu, son of Jochi, went to Russia, and his youngest brother Tului stayed in Mongolia at the center of power. 2 years later, Tului convened a meeting on the river Irtish, where it was decided to follow Genghis Khan's will and have Ojedi succeed him as Great Khan. At this time the Mongols had conquered about 10 million square kilometers of land, with their army nearly invincible, so after ascending to power, Ojedi naturally continued his father's expansion policy, targeting the remaining Jin dynasty forces in one province. However, it was difficult to conquer this province as the Han people had built strong fortifications across mountains and rivers along the communication route to Sijin. Thus, Ojedi chose to ally with the Southern Song to attack the Jin. The foolish Southern Song agreed to help the Mongols, leading to the successful capture of Kaizhou in 1234 by the joint forces of the Mongols and Southern Song, resulting in the suicide of Emperor Azong and the fall of the Jin dynasty. After returning from the Jing campaign, Ogate convened an even grander meeting on the River Irtish, where he decided to mobilize a force of 500,000 troops for simultaneous attacks in 4 directions. The first army was led by his son to attack the southern Song, the second headed towards Kharazm, which had rebelled, the third marched toward Kashmir with the aim of conquering India, and the fourth, under Batu's command, aimed at reconquering the old Hungarian Empire westward beyond the Danube. Thus began Europe's nightmare. From 1236 to 1237, Batu's army conquered Volga Bulgaria. From 1237 to 1240, his forces invaded the Rus principalities again, capturing Ryazan in 1237, Vladimir in 1238, and Kiev in 1240, making them Mongol vassals. In 1241, Batu's army invaded Poland and Hungary, defeating a combined Polish, German force at the Battle of Legnica, where King Henry II died, and then routing Hungarian forces under King Bela IV at the Battle of Mohi, leading to the fall of Hungary. The Mongols were poised to besiege Vienna in 1242 when Ogedai suddenly passed away due to excessive drinking. Batu returned eastward for the election of a new Great Khan, thus averting Europe's total subjugation. Not long after Ogedai's death, his brother Chagatai also died from overindulgence in alcohol. Thus, within 15 years of Genghis Khan's death, all members of the second generation had passed away. Although the third generation was not lacking in talent, they were more arrogant and self-indulgent than their predecessors, turning Genghis Khan's legacy of unity into empty words. The grandsons soon engaged in power struggles with Munk, son of Tolui, eventually emerging victorious by purging his uncle's remnants and resuming expansion. Munk's era saw expansions on 2 fronts. The Western Front, led by Hulagu, conquered Baghdad in 1258, destroying the Abbasid Caliphate and causing immense cultural losses that ended the Islamic Golden Age. The Eastern Front was handled by Kublai, who joined his brother in attacking the southern Song but died unexpectedly at the Battle of Diaoyu Castle in 1259 without naming a successor. This led to another power struggle among Munkei Kendes brothers, with Kublai declaring himself Great Khan in spring 1260 and implementing Han Chinese reforms emphasizing Confucian governance. This move angered traditional Mongol nomadic forces, who supported Arkun as Great Khan in Karakoram to oppose Kublai's Sinification efforts. After 4 years of war, Kublai defeated his brother but kept him under house arrest. However, the war drained resources, and when Kublai secured the title of Great Khan, the empire was already divided. Kublai controlled China, Mongolia proper, Northeast Asia, and Korea. Batu controlled Eastern Europe, Russia, Volga River regions, establishing the Golden Horde. Hulagu controlled Iran, Iraq, Caucasus, Anatolia, establishing the Ilkhanate. Kaidu, grandson of Ogedi, controlled Chagatai's fiefdoms opposing Yuan dynasty. In 1271, with Kublai's conquest of southern Song, he changed his state title to Yuan, marking the end of Mongol as a nomadic empire and its division into 4 independent states. From Genghis Khan's coronation in 1206 until Kublai's change of state title to Yuan in 1271, the true Mongol Empire had come to an end. In fact, it only existed for half a century or so. But it was just this half-century that the Mongols conquered vast territories from the Pacific to the Mediterranean, covering an area of 24 million square kilometers. The Mongol rule promoted religious tolerance and actively integrated multiculturalism, greatly promoting cultural exchanges in Central Asia, Persia, and Russia. The revival of the Silk Road and the prosperity of trade also made the connection between East and West even closer. However, the Mongols were still a relatively barbaric and backward nomadic tribe. During the conquest process, they destroyed a large number of civilized legacies, especially causing significant losses to Islamic civilization, directly leading to serious regression in the Islamic world. Although Kublai Khan tried to establish himself firmly in central China, the Yuan dynasty was actually not Sinicized much until its downfall. The degree of Sinicization was far less than that of the Jin dynasty established by the Jurchens, or even the Liao dynasty established by the Khitans. compared with the Turks who successfully overcame their own barbarism and gradually grew into a pillar of Western Asian civilization, they fell short in more ways than one. The Mongols' tactic of massacring cities was even more horrifying. Within just half a century, tens of millions of people died. They gained a brief glory at an enormous humanitarian cost, making them seem like great villains, so the Mongol Empire was indeed a thunderclap on the Eurasian continent in the 13th century, writing the noisiest page in nomadic history. But compared to its role in advancing history, I think we see more through it about the price of conquest and the resilience of advanced civilizations that fear no destruction.